Yes, sir.
Hi. Excuse me. I also have two questions. One is technical. You have a 30% response rate. To what extent is that sample of respondents representative, and do the recommendations reflect those 70% that didn't respond for whatever reason? And the second question is, I'm Chris Greer. I'm an astronomer at U of C, and my science turning point was getting to visit and go observing with an astronomer when I was in college. And so I'm really curious about what sort of day-to-day interactions the program fosters with science, and maybe particularly from Caitlin, like what your experience was. Um, the Montana trip sounds really great, but that sounds like it's a couple of weeks in the summer, and
Mhm.
I'm wondering like what happens the rest of the year.
Great questions.
Oh, great.
Caitlin.
Oh, is the mic on? Okay. Well, before we went out to Montana, we had a classroom session for about 6 weeks before going out in the field, and the classroom session taught us a lot about, what are the fossils, what are the different eras, like the Cretaceous period, and the different periods, different scientific research. We learned a lot during that time, and I think that was a crucial time for me as a student, as a transitioning student in science, because you learn the technical things about what science is, and you learn how to use it hands-on going out into the field. And so that was definitely a good connection. And it's definitely not a program that creams. I know a lot of times I've been in programs as well where I just felt disconnected because I wasn't interested in science or whatever subject they were focused on. Like they said, I want to go to law school. And so it really takes a lot for a program to reach out to students, specifically minority students from low income areas here in the city, and push them to think about a subject that is just really out of reach for a lot of minority students, such as myself, who wouldn't even dream of going into the science profession. I know right now I'm doing an internship at Exelon, and I'm working in the behavioral program to change people's behaviors about looking at green technology. And so I went down the environmental track and looked at different environmental sciences and how that fits into different people's lives. But I really want to go into the legal system. I want to look into human rights work. And so going through the program, I really had a connection with, they connected with me with the different things that I wanted to learn. It was about me. It was about, my peers, and how we could connect through the staff and learn more about science. So it was different. It was definitely a phase. It was definitely different stages through the program that connected not only me but other students as well in different areas that they felt they wanted to pursue. So definitely getting back to your question, it was a classroom where we learned more about the technical things of science.
Yeah, do you want to answer the?
And Christopher, just to explain, the science teaching in our programs is all done by scientists. And so after school programs, we set it up, we get the students going, we look at kind of supporting the students and getting them ready. The scientists come in and do all of the teaching about the science and also sharing their lives.
Juna, do you want to answer this question about the numbers?
Briefly about the 30% response rate is, again, it was a retrospective study, so we basically tried to go back and describe the influence of project exploration on the past participants. Again, we're limited by how their systems of tracking, but I think that for alumni surveys that have been done, that most universities do alumni surveys. I mean, these are done across different levels of organizations, and 30% response rate is not bad. It's pretty common, so we felt good about that, and we made lots of efforts to get people to respond. And I think that, again, it's not a longitudinal study, so I wouldn't make the effort to try to generalize to the non-respondents. However, the richness and of responses that we did get from the respondents, I think, does allow for an accurate portrayal of the influence of project exploration. And that is why we did not only survey and then did the more in-depth interviews to just sort of really try to verify and more richly describe what we were learning from the survey.
We're just about out of time, so I think we only have time for one more question. Sorry.
I'm Shelley Orbach. I've taught secondary level of physical science and physics and earth science. I wanted to offer a suggestion to particularly the people at project exploration, but it's really for everybody in the room. Mayor Daley had introduced a book that he wanted the students to read over the years. And I'm thinking to myself, now that the new mayor is coming along, what about introducing a scientific activity to everybody in Chicago? And here's the idea. Okay? How much window glass do you have in your building facing south as a percentage of the whole wall? The more, I'm guessing, the more window glass you have, the lower your energy costs. But there's no way to actually test that unless everybody in their own building was to go and measure the window glass in their south-facing exposure in that building and look at their energy bills. And if it was done citywide or neighborhood-wide or on some kind of very big level, you might see an emerging pattern in that. If I were presenting problems like this to people who live in Chicago, you can only imagine the number of connections that you would have between students, parents, landlords, the city, green technology, all of these things. And then you can extend the variable to things like the color of your roof or how much insulation they've got in their roof and things like that. I'm just thinking that this should be a problem-specific kind of thing and not trying to sell science to people who don't really understand what science is unless they've got a problem in front of them.
All right, bring it home to them. Bring it home to them in a real personal way.
There you go.
Well, Rahm Emanuel just released his transition report, and he says the transition team is going to be ongoing. So maybe that's something you might want to suggest to his transition folks. They're looking for ideas. One last final question.
I have one last final question. I'm Stephanie Levy. I'm the student coordinator of the Student Center for Science Engagement at Northeastern Illinois University, and we work at the college level to provide students with the support, resources, and experiences they need to move into lifetime careers in the sciences. And we serve underrepresented and low-income students, and our students have really complex needs. And I wanted to ask you how you engage the families, because one of the things that we run into is the parents are saying, why are you spending time in the lab when you could have a job? Even when the student has a stipend, they don't understand what science is. So we're trying to work with a family and wanted to know how you do it.
Okay.
The best way for us to work with families is to have families working with each other. Because we've had these deep relationships with some families over many years, we're increasingly asking parents to be present, to help get the word out, to speak with each other. You know, when Caitlin came out in the field with us, her mother was excited about that opportunity. We've had the opposite. We've had both families who didn't know that Yellowstone was out of state until we suddenly said there's a plane leaving tomorrow, and didn't realize that that was not obvious, you know, and realized how little we understood about assumptions we were making. So there's a lot of things that we learn from parents that they're helping us with, but the best thing we can do is put one mother on the phone to another mother to talk about how this is not just going to be okay, it's going to be wonderful, that she trusts us, and so that's a big piece of it, is having the parents be advocates. But there's a huge opportunity for us moving forward to do more of that.
Any final words? I want to just thank the stellar panel. Please, let's give them a round of applause. It's been a fantastic conversation. Pardon me?
So I just want to, on behalf of Project Exploration and our board of directors and staff, I want to thank you. On behalf of the students, your interest matters. The fact that you're curious about what's happening with them matters, and I want to thank you for that. There's some information on the back table. We encourage you to take it. We will be here. And the last thing is, I think that if this is an interesting topic, if you think working together would help and would matter, it's something we want to know about. This is the community this is the cross-section of Chicago involved in this, and I think that we're already engaged. The question is, can we get organized? And so we're hoping to do that with you, to be intentional and to change the future. So thank you again for coming.